Welcome to the final episode of the series on symmetry in music. We're going to briefly explore more symmetrical and nearly symmetrical sets, explain the unique qualities of major and pentatonic, and then tie the series together with several complete models for understanding sets in relation to symmetry, voice leading, and consonance. This episode features a few music theory contributions from people on the Discord, which is wonderful. I'm Jay Beard and I make videos about Scriabin and music theory. Check out my website to see the lessons and courses that I offer, like the new Applying Set Theory course, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get into it at the whiteboard. We begin with a shout out to Joey Harden for writing out every set with transpositional symmetry. In the version I made of it, we can see complementary sets next to each other, which together form all 12 pitches. Since the diminished chord is symmetrical, mapping onto itself at 4 transposition levels, the same applies to its complement, which is the octatonic scale. In the second episode, we learned that nearly symmetrical sets can achieve a low displacement chord change by transposing by the level its symmetrical neighbor would map onto itself. In previous episodes, we only discussed this in regards to maximally symmetrical equal divisions of the octave, so now let's explore this with other sets. Let's take the French 6 chord that maps onto itself at the tritone. When we shift B flat up to B, we get this nice jazzy 4/16 nearly symmetrical set we might call a major 7 sharp 11. To transpose this chord up a tritone efficiently, we just need to take one step back into the symmetrical wormhole and then shift E up to F to achieve the 2-note voice leading magic. This is the only magic voice leading potential it has, while the maximally symmetrical sets have multiple transposition levels for which this works. Another nearly symmetrical set I want to mention is the neighbor of the octatonic scale. If we shift E flat down to D, we get 827, which I call Scriabin's superset in this video that includes several examples. He doesn't necessarily transpose this set by 3 semitones for parsimonious voice leading, but the takeaway is that it's not a surprise that one of the most beautiful usable 8-note sets is 1 semitone away from the most symmetrical 8-note set. Now let's discuss why last episode I said that the pentatonic scale and the major scale are especially nearly symmetrical. There's no equal division of the octave for 5 and 7-note sets because we use 12-tone equal temperament, but let's imagine such a set outside of our tuning. You can hear the dissonant demonstration of what it would sound like in this video, and it follows that an equal-length 7-sided figure would map onto itself when transposed approximately 7 semitones up a fifth. So what's the major scale's relationship to this 7-note equal division of the octave? We could say the major scale is like the nearly symmetrical neighbor of it, and how many semitones is it away? The math is a bit complicated, but the simple answer is less than 1. So if a major scale wanted to move into the 7-note equal division wormhole, it'd take less than 1 semitone of displacement, and to move out of it on the other side of pitch space, it'd also take less than 1 semitone. The result is that a major scale can move up a fifth with only 1 semitone of displacement, roughly half a semitone into the 7-note symmetrical set, and roughly half a semitone out of it a fourth or fifth away. Many of you probably knew this result already if you're familiar with the circle of fifths and how keys change by just adding 1 accidental. Adding a flat shifts the major scale up a fourth, and a sharp shifts it up a fifth. It's insightful to learn the geometric perspective for why the major scale has ideal voice leading at the level of a fourth and fifth. It explains why music tends to change keys at those transposition levels. The same is true for its complement, the pentatonic set. To go from C major pentatonic to F major pentatonic, we just shift the E to F. This 1-note voice leading magic is only possible with major and pentatonic sets, which explains why they're some of the most utilized fundamental scales in music. While the major scale is predominantly used in European classical music, the pentatonic set is the most common set used in music across the globe. The fact that these sets have some of the most ideal voice leading potential and they're some of the most utilized in music shows that this geometric perspective is revealing valuable truths about musical structures. There are so many sets we haven't mentioned, and yet every set can be thought of as either an equal division of the octave or somewhere on the spectrum of near symmetry, a certain number of semitones removed from perfect symmetry. We call major and minor triads nearly symmetrical for being one semitone away from the augmented chord, but what about nearly symmetric sets that are two semitones away from the augmented chord? Well, Fenemu on the Discord shared this spectacular model of the entire network of relationships between three-note sets. The augmented chord is in the center, and the sets that are one semitone away from each other are next to each other, connected by a line on the chart. We can see how major and minor are the nearly symmetric neighbors just outside the center. Then the next layer outside of that has suspended, diminished triad, and the seventh chord triad. This keeps extending outward by step till we have chromatic clusters on the edges. I made a simplified model that shows each unique set that's arrived at by shifting one semitone. The layers towards the top of the list are more consonant and have better voice leading potential, while the sets furthest from symmetry are more dissonant. There's just one important exception to keep in mind, that the perfectly symmetrical set at the top of the list, in this case the augmented chord, is actually very dissonant and unstable, so the most consonant sets start at the second layer and get more dissonant the further down they are on the list. So the first model showed the complete network of connections between three-note sets, and the second model showed a hierarchy of how far three-note sets are from maximal symmetry. Now it's time to show a more complete model for organizing all the sets by their distance from the equal division of the octave. It's actually a chart discussed in the Set Theory Simplified series called the Set Chart of Modes. We rank ordered every set by how far it is from the equal division of the octave for each cardinality, similar to my last model. The difference is that we break the ties by ranking the more spread out sets towards the top and the more compact sets towards the bottom. For example, suspended, diminished, and seventh triads are both two semitones away from augmented. By comparing the distances between the first and last pitches, we can rank suspended first among those three because it spans the largest distance, then diminished, then seventh. This creates a logical ranking system to view the entire world of sets by, which relates to sets' voice leading potential and consonance. This spread number system for ranking sets was created years ago thanks to discussions on music theory Reddit with Redditors Voronska and Chord Space. It's a much more useful framework for organizing sets than fort numbers because it puts sets closest to symmetry at the top of the list, which are more relevant to musical application. I mostly write out fort numbers on this channel because they're more widely known, but perhaps we can start using spread numbers to label sets. It might be hard to remember that the fort number for the mystic chord is 634, but since we know it's the near symmetry of the whole tone scale, it's easier to remember it's spread number 6.2. 6 because it has 6 pitches, and 2 because it's the second closest to the equal division of the octave. This series has showed us the role that symmetry and nearly symmetrical sets play in music, and it's also showed us that symmetry is a logical framework for understanding the relationships between musical structures. Transpositional symmetry creates ideal voice leading at certain transposition levels by completely mapping onto itself. All other sets are on a spectrum of distance from that ideal. Nearly symmetrical sets partially map onto themselves with a small distance needed to travel in and out of the symmetrical wormhole. Therefore, the distance that a set is from the equal division of the octave tells us about its voice leading potential, which is aligned with how consonant it sounds in isolation. Thus, we can explore harmony organized in a logical way using the spread number ranking system used in the Set Chart of Modes and Scale Sets' sheet music, all of which are available on my website. Thank you all so much for watching, and please share these ideas with others. The Applying Set Theory course helps you apply some of the ideas discussed here to your own music. Let me know what sort of music theory topics you'd like me to discuss next. Check out my website, join the Discord, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Cheers.